Shadows crept through the fog-shrouded gates of Ravenwood Manor, where a single whisper could unravel a web of deceit and murder. A trusted ally turned traitor. A fortune vanished in the night. Welcome to the gripping tale of Poirot and the betrayal at Ravenwood Manor. Grab a cup of tea, take a seat, and let the suspense pull you in. If you're enjoying the story, hit that subscribe button. Your support means a lot to us. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Darkness. In the misty English countryside of 1928, where rolling hills met ancient estates shrouded in secrets, Hercule Poirot adjusted his impeccable moustache in the reflection of his silver pocket watch. The little Belgian detective, renowned for his grey cells and unyielding pursuit of truth, had just received a most intriguing summons. It came in the form of a crisp envelope, sealed with the wax emblem of a raven in flight, delivered to his London apartment by a breathless messenger boy. "Urgent, sir," the lad had panted, tipping his cap before vanishing into the bustling streets. Poirot, ever the man of precision, sliced open the letter with a pearl-handled knife. The words leaped out in elegant script. "Dear Monsieur Poirot, your expertise is required at Ravenwood Manor. A matter of grave betrayal threatens my family. Come at once. Discretion assured. Yours, Lord Edmund Harrington." Ah, betrayal. The word alone stirred Poirot's curiosity, like a fine cognac warms the soul. He knew of the Harringtons. Old money, vast lands, and rumours of scandals whispered in high society drawing rooms. What could compel a lord to seek out a foreigner like himself? Poirot smiled faintly. The English aristocracy often underestimated the power of a methodical mind. Packing his valise with essentials, a magnifying glass, a notebook, and his favourite herbal tisanes, Poirot boarded the afternoon train from Paddington Station. The journey wound through verdant fields and quaint villages, but his thoughts raced ahead to Ravenwood. He recalled snippets from the newspapers. Lord Harrington, a widower in his 50s, presided over an estate teeming with heirs and hangers-on. There was his daughter, Lady Amelia, beautiful and headstrong. His son, Reginald, a gambler with debts mounting like storm clouds, and a cadre of distant relatives, each eyeing the family fortune. Betrayal, indeed. Poirot suspected it lurked not in shadows, but in the hearts of those closest. As the train chugged to a halt at the rural station, a sleek black Rolls-Royce awaited, its chauffeur stiff and silent. The drive to the manor twisted along narrow lanes flanked by gnarled oaks, their branches clawing at the sky like accusatory fingers. Ravenwood Manor emerged from the dusk, a sprawling Gothic edifice of stone and ivy, its towers piercing the heavens, windows glowing like watchful eyes. Poirot stepped out, the gravel crunching under his polished shoes, and was greeted by the butler, Jenkins, a gaunt man with eyes that darted like a cornered fox. "Welcome." "Monsieur Poirot," Jenkins intoned, his voice a hollow echo. "His lordship awaits in the drawing-room." Poirot nodded, noting the butler's trembling hands. Fear, perhaps, or guilt? Inside, the manor exhaled antiquity. Polished oak panels, crystal chandeliers, and portraits of stern ancestors glaring down. Lord Harrington rose from a leather armchair by the roaring fire, his face etched with worry, lines deeper than the estate's moat. "Monsieur Poirot, thank heavens you've come," he said, gripping the detective's hand. "My family is fracturing. Last night, my safe was emptied. Jewels, bonds, deeds worth a king's ransom. But worse, I suspect one of my own did it. Amelia argues with Reginald constantly. My niece Clara arrived unannounced with her shady fiancé. Even my old friend Dr. Thorne acts strangely. I fear betrayal from within, and perhaps murder on the horizon." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Mon ami, fear not. Hercule Poirot shall unravel this knot. Tell me everything, from the smallest detail." As Harrington poured out the tale of heated dinners, missing keys, and anonymous threats, Poirot listened, his mind piecing together the puzzle. Outside, thunder rumbled, as if the manor itself protested the intrusion. Little did Poirot know, this was merely the calm before the storm. The betrayal at Ravenwood would test even his brilliant deductions, leading to revelations that could shatter lives. But for now, as the clock struck midnight, he retired to his guest room, unaware that eyes watched from the darkness. Stay tuned for the shadows to deepen in the next chapter. Chapter 2. Whispers in the corridors. The morning sun barely pierced the heavy drapes of Ravenwood Manor, casting a pallid glow over the breakfast room where the household gathered. Hercule Poirot, impeccable in a tailored suit, sipped his tisane and observed the assembled company with the precision of a hawk. The air was thick with tension, each clink of silverware a note in a discordant symphony. Lord Harrington sat at the head, his eyes bloodshot, while Lady Amelia toyed with her toast, her gaze sharp as a blade. Reginald slouched in his chair, reeked of last night's brandy, and Clara, the niece, whispered to her fiancé Victor, whose sly smile unnerved Poirot. Dr. Thorne, the family friend, read a newspaper with forced nonchalance, his fingers drumming an anxious rhythm. Poirot noted the seating. Amelia beside her father, Reginald across, Clara and Victor at the far end, and Dr. Thorne near the window as if ready to flee. The servants moved like ghosts, Jenkins the butler overseeing with a strained expression. Poirot's grey cells hummed. Someone here knew about the theft, and perhaps more. He broke the silence with a polite cough. Bon matin, mes amis. A fine morning for truth, no? I shall begin my inquiries today. If anyone wishes to share observations, my door is open. A fork clattered. Amelia's eyes flashed. Inquiries? Father, must we endure this? Interrogation? Her voice dripped with disdain, but Poirot caught a flicker of fear. Lord Harrington sighed. Amelia, enough. Monsieur Poirot is here to help. Reginald snorted, muttering about foreign meddlers, while Clara's laugh was high and brittle. Victor leaned forward, his voice smooth as oil. I'm sure we all want the truth, monsieur, but some truths are best left buried, don't you think? Poirot smiled thinly. Monsieur, I find buried truths have a way of rising, like weeds. After breakfast, Poirot began his exploration, starting with the scene of the crime, the library, where the safe lay, hidden behind a portrait of a dour Harrington ancestor. The room smelled of old leather and wax, its shelves groaning with tomes. The safe, a hulking steel beast, stood ajar, its contents long gone. Poirot examined it with his magnifying glass, noting scratches around the lock, subtle but deliberate. A skilled hand, perhaps, or a desperate one. The portrait above, slightly askew, suggested haste. He jotted notes, his mind weaving possibilities. Next, he interviewed Jenkins in the butler's pantry, a cramped space lined with silver polish and secrets. The man's hands still trembled as he recounted the previous evening. I locked the house at 10, sir, as always. No strangers about, but I heard footsteps in the west wing after midnight. Couldn't say who. Poirot pressed gently. And you saw nothing unusual? No one near the library. Jenkins hesitated, his eyes darting. Miss Clara was up late, sir. Said she was fetching a book, but she seemed nervous. Poirot nodded, filing away the detail. In the rose garden, Poirot found Amelia, her auburn hair catching the weak sunlight. She paced, her gloves twisting in her hands. Monsieur Poirot, I don't trust Victor, she blurted. He's after Clara's inheritance, I'm sure of it. Last night I saw him near the library, skulking like a thief. Her voice trembled, but was it concern or deflection? Poirot thanked her, his mind noting her quick accusation. A pattern was forming. Each pointed fingers at another, yet none offered clarity. As noon approached, Poirot paused by a stained glass window, its colours casting eerie patterns. A maid, young and skittish, approached. Sir, I shouldn't say, but I found this in the west wing. She pressed a crumpled note into his hand. Unfolding it, Poirot read, Meet me at midnight. The safe must be opened. No signature, no names. just a clue that tightened the knot of suspicion. The Manor's secrets were stirring, each whisper a thread in a tangled web. Poirot knew the truth lay not just in evidence, but in the hearts of those within these walls. The day was young, and the shadows of Ravenwood held more to reveal. Stay tuned for the next twist in this tale of betrayal. Chapter 3. The midnight note. Hercule Poirot stood in the dim glow of Ravenwood Manor's west wing corridor, the crumpled note from the maid clutched in his gloved hand. The words, "Meet me at midnight. The safe must be opened," burned in his mind, a silent accusation against an unknown conspirator. The Manor's air felt heavier now, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Poirot tucked the note into his pocket, his sharp eyes scanning the corridor's faded tapestries and flickering sconces. Someone had planned treachery under this roof, and he was determined to unmask them. He sought out Clara next, finding her in the conservatory, surrounded by wilting orchids and the scent of damp earth. Her delicate frame was draped in a silk shawl, but her eyes betrayed unease as Poirot approached. "Mademoiselle Clara, a word," he began, his tone gentle but firm. "You were seen in the west wing last night, near the library. Care to explain?" Clara's fingers tightened around a watering can. I couldn't sleep," she stammered. "I went for a book, nothing more." Poirot tilted his head, noting her flushed cheeks. "And did you meet anyone, perhaps at midnight?" Her gasp was faint but telling. "No, I was alone," she insisted, turning away. Poirot let her go, sensing her words hid more than they revealed. The afternoon led him to Victor, Clara's fiancé, lounging in the billiard room. The man's slick charm was like polished brass, shiny but cold. Poirot wasted no time. "Monsieur Victor, you were observed near the library last night. And this," he produced the note, watching Victor's reaction, "suggests a plot." "What do you know?" Victor's smirk faltered, but he recovered quickly. "A note? How quaint. I was merely checking on Clara. She's been so nervous lately. As for the library, I never went inside." His eyes, however, lingered too long on the paper. Poirot smiled faintly, dismissing him, but marking him as a man with secrets. Later, Poirot examined the west wing himself. The corridor was narrow, its floorboards creaking underfoot. He found the spot where the maid had discovered the note, near a side table cluttered with dusty candelabras. Kneeling, he spotted a faint scuff mark on the wood. A boot, perhaps, too large for Clara's dainty shoes. Nearby, a loose floorboard caught his eye. Prying it up with his penknife, he uncovered a small brass key, its edges worn but intricate. A safe key? No. Too small, he mused, pocketing it for later study. Dinner that evening was a tense affair. Reginald, bleary-eyed, snapped at a servant for spilling wine, while Dr. Thorne spoke overly loudly about the weather. Lord Harrington barely touched his food, his gaze fixed on Poirot as if seeking salvation. The detective remained silent, observing how each avoided the other's eyes. After the meal, he cornered Dr. Thorne in the smoking room. "You seem uneasy, Doctor," Poirot said, offering a cigar he knew would be declined. Thorne's hand shook slightly. "It's this house," he muttered. "Too many ghosts. And that theft? It's torn them apart." Poirot pressed. "Did you see anyone near the library last night?" Thorne hesitated, then said, "Reginald was wandering late. He looked agitated." Another thread, another suspect. As night fell, Poirot sat by his window, the manor cloaked in darkness, save for the occasional flicker of lightning. The key and note lay on his desk, twin enigmas. Were they linked to the theft, or something deeper? The household was a chessboard, each piece moving with hidden intent. Clara's nerves, Victor's evasions, Reginald's agitation, Thorne's unease. Each was a clue, yet none formed a complete picture. Poirot's mind churned, arranging and rearranging the facts. Outside, a shadow moved across the lawn, too fleeting to identify. Poirot's pulse quickened. The game was escalating. and the Manor's secrets were far from unravelled. The key in his pocket felt heavier, as if it unlocked not just a lock, but a truth that could shatter Ravenwood's fragile peace. The next chapter of this mystery promises darker revelations. Stay tuned. Chapter 4. Shadows on the Lawn. Hercule Poirot's keen senses prickled as he gazed out into the inky blackness beyond his guest-room window, the fleeting shadow on the lawn etching itself into his meticulous memory. The manor house, with its creaking timbers and whispering draughts, seemed alive with unspoken fears. He had retired early after dinner, feigning fatigue to allow his mind the solitude it craved for piecing together the fragments of this puzzle. The crumpled note and the small brass key lay side by side on the mahogany writing desk, illuminated by the soft flicker of a single candle. Poirot examined the key once more under his magnifying glass, its intricate grooves suggesting it belonged to something delicate, perhaps a jewellery box or a hidden drawer, not the bulky safe in the library. "Ah, mon petit clé," he murmured to himself. "What secrets do you guard?" Unable to shake the image of the shadow, Poirot donned his silk dressing gown and slipped quietly into the corridor. The house was shrouded in silence, broken only by the distant tick of the grandfather clock in the hall below. His soft-soled slippers made no sound as he descended the grand staircase, each step a calculated move in this game of cat and mouse. The front door was unlocked, a careless oversight or deliberate invitation. Poirot stepped out into the chill night air, the gravel path crunching faintly underfoot despite his caution. The lawn stretched out like a velvet carpet, bordered by ancient yew hedges that loomed like silent sentinels. The moon, half hidden behind scudding clouds, cast erratic pools of light, and it was in one such pool that Poirot spotted a disturbance. Fresh footprints in the dew-kissed grass, leading toward the old gazebo at the garden's edge. Following the trail with the stealth of a seasoned detective, Poirot's mind raced through possibilities. Was this the thief returning for more, or a rendezvous between conspirators? The gazebo, overgrown with ivy and roses long past their bloom, offered a secluded spot for clandestine meetings. As he approached, a low murmur of voices reached his ears. Two figures, shrouded in darkness, engaged in hushed conversation. Poirot concealed himself behind a thick hedge, his breath steady, ears straining. "Ah, the key is missing," one voice hissed, unmistakably Reginald's, laced with urgency and a hint of panic. "If it's found, we're done for." The other voice, smoother and more composed, belonged to Victor. "Calm yourself. The old fool suspects nothing. We'll retrieve what's ours and be gone before dawn." Poirot's heart quickened. So, an alliance between the son and the fiancée? But for what end? He edged closer, risking a peek through the foliage. Reginald paced nervously, his face pale in the moonlight, while Victor stood with arms crossed, exuding confidence. "Clara knows too much," Reginald continued, his voice dropping lower. "She saw me with the documents." "If she talks," Victor's laugh was cold. "She won't. She's too invested. Remember, the fortune is split. Without the deeds, Harrington loses everything, and we gain it all." Poirot's grey cells fired rapidly. Documents, not just jewels. The theft was deeper than mere valuables. It involved the estate's very foundation. Before Poirot could glean more, a twig snapped under his foot, a rare misstep. The voices ceased abruptly. "Who's there?" Reginald barked, spinning toward the hedge. Poirot froze, but it was too late. Victor's hand darted into his coat pocket, emerging with a small pistol that glinted ominously. "Show yourself." Poirot, ever the pragmatist, stepped out with hands raised, his expression one of mild surprise. "Monsieur, a late-night stroll for fresh air, non? The English countryside is most invigorating." Reginald's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in fury. "You, spying on us?" Victor, quicker to recover, pocketed the weapon with a forced smile. "Monsieur Poirot, what a coincidence. We were just discussing family matters." Poirot lowered his hands slowly, his mind assessing the danger. Family matters that involve missing keys and fortunes, perhaps. I could not help but overhear. Reginald lunged forward, but Victor restrained him. Easy, Reg. The detective is clever, but he's alone. Turning to Poirot, Victor's tone turned silky. You've found something, haven't you? That key under the floorboard. Clara's doing, no doubt. She's playing her own game. Poirot arched an eyebrow, neither confirming nor denying. Games within games, monsieur. But Betrayal has a way of unravelling all players. The confrontation was interrupted by a piercing scream from the manor house, shattering the night's fragile peace. All three men turned, the sound echoing like a banshee's wail. That's Amelia, Reginald gasped, bolting toward the house. Victor followed, casting a warning glance back at Poirot. The detective hurried after them, his short legs pumping furiously. Inside, chaos reigned. Servants scurried, lamps were lit in haste, and Lord Harrington emerged from his study, dishevelled and alarmed. The scream had come from the upper floor, Lady Amelia's room. Racing upstairs, they found Amelia collapsed on the floor, her nightgown disarrayed, a shattered vase nearby. Dr. Thorne knelt beside her, checking her pulse. She's fainted, he announced, his voice steady but eyes wide. Something frightened her terribly. As Poirot knelt to examine the scene, he spotted a note pinned to her dressing table mirror with a dagger, crude, effective. The message, scrawled in red ink, "The betrayer will pay with blood." Amelia stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "A shadow, at the window," she whispered. "It vanished when I screamed." Poirot's gaze shifted to the open window, curtains billowing in the breeze. No footprints below, but a trellis climbed the wall. A possible entry. The household gathered, faces a mask of shock and suspicion. Clara clutched Victor's arm, her face ashen. Reginald hovered guiltily. Jenkins wrung his hands. Lord Harrington demanded answers, but Poirot raised a hand for silence. "Mes amis, the web tightens. This is no mere theft. It is a campaign of terror. I shall redouble my efforts." As the group dispersed, Poirot lingered, his mind cataloguing every detail. The note's handwriting, mismatched from the previous one. The dagger's ornate handle, perhaps from the manor's armoury. Amelia's genuine terror, or was it? Back in his room, he added these to his notes. The small key, now a centerpiece. The shadow on the lawn, the eavesdropped plot. The scream. All threads leading to a core of deceit. But who pulled the strings? Reginald and Victor were involved. Yet Clara's role nagged at him. And Dr. Thorne, too calm in crisis. The night wore on, but sleep eluded Poirot. Dawn would bring new light, perhaps illuminating the path to truth. Yet, with threats escalating, he sensed the betrayal at Ravenwood was poised to claim its first victim. The manor held its breath, waiting for the next strike. Deeper mysteries await in the unfolding saga. Stay tuned for the revelations ahead. Chapter 5. The Armoury's Secret. The dawn broke over Ravenwood Manor with a reluctant grey light, as if the sun itself hesitated to illuminate the estate's dark secrets. Hercule Poirot, ever punctual, was already dressed in his immaculate suit, his moustache perfectly waxed despite the sleepless night. The events of the previous evening, the overheard plot between Reginald and Victor, Amelia's scream, and the threatening note pinned with a dagger, had sharpened his resolve. The small brass key in his pocket seemed to pulse with significance, and he was determined to uncover its purpose. The manor's inhabitants were restless, their masks of civility fraying, and Poirot sensed the truth was close, lurking in the crevices of Ravenwood's ancient walls. After a solitary breakfast of toast and tea, Poirot set out to investigate the dagger from Amelia's room. Its ornate handle, etched with a raven motif, suggested it was no ordinary weapon. He sought out Jenkins, the butler, in the servants' hall, where the man was polishing silver with mechanical precision. "Monsieur Jenkins," Poirot began, his voice soft but commanding, "this dagger, does it belong to the manor?" He held up a sketch he'd made of the weapon, noting Jenkins' sudden pallor. "Aye, sir," the butler replied, his voice low. "It's from the armoury, a collection of old Harrington blades, kept locked usually." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Usually? Take me there. S'il vous plaît." The armoury, tucked in a chilly stone annex off the main hall, was a relic of Ravenwood's feudal past. Jenkins unlocked the heavy oak door with a key from his chain, revealing a room lined with racks of swords, daggers, and muskets, their steel glinting dully under cobwebbed chandeliers. Poirot's gaze swept the space, landing on an empty hook on the far wall, its label reading Raven Crest Dagger. The match was unmistakable. "When did you last check this room?" Poirot asked. Jenkins hesitated. 2 days ago, sir. All was in order then." Poirot nodded, noting a faint scratch on the lock. Fresh, like the one on the library safe. Someone with access, or skill, had been here. Leaving Jenkins, Poirot explored further, his magnifying glass tracing the armoury's stone floor. Near a suit of armour he found a tiny shred of fabric, blue silk, torn, as if caught in haste. It matched nothing he'd seen the household wear, but he pocketed it, his mind cataloguing its potential significance. The armoury's window, high and narrow, was latched from the inside, ruling out an external intruder. The thief, and perhaps the threatener, walked among them. Mid-morning, Poirot sought Dr. Thorne, finding him in the Manor's small laboratory, a cluttered space of vials and medical books. The doctor was mixing a tonic, his hands steady but his eyes wary. "Monsieur Poirot, any progress?" he asked too casually. Poirot smiled. "Progress, oui, but mysteries multiply. Tell me, doctor, you are a man of science. Have you observed anything unusual in the household's behaviour?" Thorne set down a beaker. "Reginald's drinking has worsened, and Clara's been secretive, always whispering with Victor. But last night I saw something odd. Amelia, in the garden, long after her supposed fright. She wasn't alone." Poirot leaned forward. "And who was with her?" Thorne shrugged. "Too dark to tell. A man, I think, but not Victor." This revelation sent Poirot to the garden, where he examined the trellis beneath Amelia's window. The wood was sturdy, but a few vines were crushed, suggesting a climb. No footprints remained. The morning dew had erased them, but a glint in the grass caught his eye. A cufflink, silver, engraved with the letter R. Reginald's, or a red herring. Poirot's mind churned. Amelia's scream, the note, the dagger, staged perhaps to divert suspicion, or was she truly a victim? At luncheon, the household gathered, tension crackling like static. Poirot observed silently. Clara avoided Victor's gaze. Reginald fidgeted with his cuffs, one missing a link, and Amelia's composure seemed forced, her eyes darting to the windows. Lord Harrington, pale and drawn, addressed Poirot. "Monsieur, have you found my fortune, or the traitor?" Poirot replied calmly. "Patience, my lord. The truth reveals itself slowly, like a fine wine uncorking." But privately, he felt the urgency. The dagger's threat was no idle warning. Late afternoon brought Poirot to the library, seeking the lock that fit his mysterious key. He tested drawers, cabinets, even the desk's hidden compartments, but none yielded. Frustrated, he paused by the fireplace, noticing a faint seam in the panelling. Pressing it, he heard a click. A secret drawer sprang open and the key fit perfectly. Inside was a single document, a codicil to Lord Harrington's will, dated a month prior, naming Clara as sole heir to a hidden trust. Poirot's pulse raced. Was this the documents Reginald and Victor spoke of? Did Clara know, or was she a pawn? As dusk settled, Poirot stood by the library's window, the codicil hidden in his coat. The manor was a labyrinth of motives. Greed, fear, love, hate. The cufflink, the silk, the dagger, the codicil, each a piece of the puzzle, but the picture remained elusive. A sudden noise, a crash from the upper floor, jerked him from his thoughts. Racing upstairs, he found the household gathered outside Clara's room, where a shattered mirror lay in pieces, and Clara stood trembling, a fresh note in her hand. The truth cuts deeper than glass. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The betrayal was growing bolder, and time was running short. The web of Ravenwood tightened, each clue a thread pulling Poirot closer to danger. Who wielded the pen behind these threats? And what did the codicil mean for the family's future? The Manor's shadows held their secrets close, but Poirot's grey cells were relentless. The next chapter promises a confrontation that will shake Ravenwood to its core. Stay tuned. Chapter 6. The Codicil's Shadow. The shattered mirror in Clara's room cast jagged reflections across the polished floorboards, each shard glinting like a warning in the lamplight. Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold, his sharp eyes scanning the scene. Clara, pale and trembling, clutching the threatening note. Lord Harrington, his face a mask of dread. Amelia, her lips tight with unspoken thoughts. And Victor, hovering too close to Clara, his expression unreadable. Reginald was absent, his absence as conspicuous as a shout in the silence. The note, scrawled in the same red ink as the one in Amelia's room, read, "The truth cuts deeper than glass." Poirot folded it carefully into his notebook, his mind racing. The threats were escalating, and the codicil he'd found, naming Clara as heir to a secret trust, added a dangerous new layer to the mystery. Poirot addressed the group with calm authority. "Mes amis, this act is no mere prank. Someone seeks to terrify, perhaps to control. I must ask, who has access to red ink in this house?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Dr. Thorne, standing quietly by the door, cleared his throat. "There's a bottle in the library desk for marking ledgers. Anyone could have taken it." Poirot nodded, noting the doctor's quick response. Was it too convenient? He dismissed the group, asking Clara to remain. "Mademoiselle, you are shaken. Is there something you wish to confide?" Clara's eyes darted to the doorway, then back. I don't know who did this," she whispered, "but I've been getting letters. Anonymous. They say I'll regret coming here." Poirot pressed gently, but she clammed up, fleeing to Victor's side. Determined to trace the codicil's origins, Poirot returned to the library, the heart of Ravenwood's secrets. The secret drawer, now empty save for dust, mocked his efforts. He examined the codicil again, its legal jargon precise. A trust of $50,000, separate from the main estate, to be Clara's upon Lord Harrington's death. Why hidden? And why Clara, the distant niece, over Amelia or Reginald? Poirot sought out Lord Harrington in his study, where the old man sat hunched over a glass of brandy. "Milord," Poirot began, producing the document. "This codicil, when did you write it, and who knows of it?" Harrington's eyes widened, then clouded. "I wrote it a month ago, to secure Clara's future. She's had a hard life, orphaned young. Only my solicitor knew, or so I thought." His voice cracked. "If this is why the safe was robbed, I've endangered her." Poirot's next move was to find Reginald, whose absence at the mirror incident was suspicious. He located him in the stables, brushing down a restless mare, his hands unsteady. "Monsieur Reginald," Poirot said, startling him. "You were not with us upstairs. And this," he held up the silver cufflink with the engraved R, "was found under Amelia's window. Care to explain?" Reginald's face flushed crimson. "That's mine, yes, but I lost it days ago. I was in my room last night drinking, alone." His eyes shifted, betraying the lie. Poirot pressed further. "And the documents you spoke of with Victor? The ones tied to the fortune?" Reginald froze, then stammered, "You're fishing, Poirot. I know nothing." But his sweat-soaked brow told another story. As evening fell, Poirot took to the Manor's upper floors, searching for the source of the red ink. In a cramped attic room used for storage, he found a desk cluttered with old ledgers and a half-empty bottle of crimson ink, its cap loose. Nearby, a scrap of paper bore a single word in the same hue. Traitor. The handwriting matched neither note exactly, yet the ink was identical. Poirot's grey cells hummed. Someone was orchestrating chaos, but with what aim? To scare Clara from her inheritance? To frame another? The attic's dust was disturbed. Footprints too small for a man's boots, perhaps a woman's or a servant's. Dinner was a grim affair, the household barely speaking. Jenkins served with mechanical precision, but Poirot caught him glancing at Clara with something like pity. After the meal, Poirot lingered in the dining room, examining a portrait of Lady Harrington, the late matriarch, whose eyes seemed to follow him. A faint outline behind the frame caught his attention. Easing it aside, he found a hidden niche containing a small ledger, its pages listing payments to an unknown VS, hundreds of pounds over months. Victor Steele, perhaps, or another player yet unseen. As Poirot retired to his room, a soft knock interrupted his thoughts. It was the maid who'd given him the first note, her face pale. "Sir, I found this in the laundry," she whispered, handing him a torn glove, blue silk matching the shred from the armory. "It's Miss Amelia's, but she'd never wear it torn." Poirot thanked her, his mind whirling. Amelia, seen in the garden with an unknown man, now linked to the armory. Was she victim or conspirator? The night deepened, and a storm rolled in, thunder shaking Ravenwood's ancient bones. Poirot sat by his candle, piecing together the fragments. The codicil, the cufflink, the ink, the glove, the ledger. Each pointed to a web of greed and fear, but the mastermind remained elusive. A sudden gust blew out his candle, plunging the room into darkness. From the corridor came a muffled cry, sharp and desperate. Poirot grabbed his flashlight and hurried out, heart pounding. The betrayer was moving, and the manor's secrets were about to spill like blood. Stay tuned for the storm's next revelation. Chapter 7. The Cry in the Storm. The muffled cry pierced the storm's roar, pulling Hercule Poirot from his room into the darkened corridor of Ravenwood Manor. His flashlight's beam cut through the gloom, revealing only shadows dancing on the oak-panelled walls. The air was electric, charged with the tempest outside and the mounting dread within. The cry had come from the east wing, where the family's private quarters lay, and Poirot moved swiftly, his polished shoes silent on the thick carpet. The manor seemed to hold its breath, as if bracing for the next blow in this deadly game of betrayal. He reached the east wing landing, where a single lamp flickered, casting eerie shapes. The cry had stopped, replaced by a low sobbing. Poirot followed the sound to Dr. Thorne's room, the door slightly ajar. Inside, he found the doctor slumped in an armchair, a glass of whiskey shattered at his feet, his face buried in his hands. "Mon Dieu, doctor, what has happened?" Poirot asked, his voice steady despite the tension. Thorne looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "It's Clara," he choked out. "I heard her scream, then nothing. I checked her room, she's gone." Poirot's pulse quickened. Clara, the heiress named in the codicil, missing? This was no coincidence. Poirot hurried to Clara's room, 2 doors down. The door was wide open, the bed unmade, a shawl discarded on the floor. The window was latched, but a faint draught suggested it had been opened recently. Poirot's flashlight swept the room, landing on a small smear of mud on the rug, fresh, with a leaf fragment embedded. Someone had been outside, perhaps luring Clara or worse. He examined the dressing table. A hairpin was bent, as if used to pick a lock, and a single pearl earring lay abandoned, its pair missing. Poirot pocketed the earring, his mind racing. Was Clara a victim, or had she fled to protect her secrets? He summoned the household, their faces a mix of fear and suspicion in the flickering hall light. Lord Harrington, dishevelled in his nightshirt, demanded, "Where is my niece?" Amelia clutched her robe, her eyes wide but dry. Victor's jaw was tight, his hands balled into fists. Reginald, bleary from drink, muttered, "She's probably run off with some lover." Jenkins hovered at the edge, his gaunt face unreadable. Poirot raised a hand for silence. "Mes amis, we must search the manor and grounds. Clara may be in danger, or she may know something dangerous. Pair up and report to me in 1 hour." The search was chaotic, the storm hampering efforts. Poirot paired with Jenkins, heading to the lower floors. In the kitchen, He noticed a back door slightly ajar, rain pooling on the tiles. "Jenkins, was this door checked tonight?" The butler shook his head. "Locked at 10, sir, as always." Poirot examined the lock, scratched like the safe in Armory. Outside, the muddy path led to the old stables, where Poirot found a lantern still warm, its wick recently extinguished. Someone had been here, and recently. Returning to the manor, Poirot interrogated Victor in the drawing room. "Monsieur, you were close to Clara. Where might she go?" Victor's eyes narrowed. "She was upset about the mirror, the notes. She mentioned leaving Ravenwood, but I thought it was nerves." His voice was smooth, but Poirot caught a tremor. "And you did not follow her tonight?" Victor shook his head too quickly. Poirot let it pass, noting the man's damp cuff. Rain or something else? Amelia approached next, her voice low. "Monsieur Poirot, I didn't want to say before, but Clara was acting strange all day. She kept checking her watch, muttering about time running out. I think she knew something about the theft." Poirot studied her, recalling the torn silk glove. "And you, mademoiselle, were in the garden last night." "With whom?" Amelia flushed. I was alone, clearing my head." Her lie was as thin as the morning mist. The search yielded no Clara, but Reginald returned from the grounds, soaked and shaken. "Found this by the lake," he said, holding out a woman's scarf, Clara's, embroidered with her initials. The fabric was torn, stained with what looked like blood. Poirot's stomach tightened. "We must call the police," Lord Harrington insisted, but Poirot shook his head. "Not yet, my lord. The truth is here, within these walls. I need time." Back in his room, Poirot laid out his clues: the codicil, the cufflink, the silk shred, the pearl earring, the scarf. Each pointed to a different player, yet all were connected. The mud in Clara's room suggested an outsider, or someone posing as one. The hairpin hinted at skill, perhaps Victor's. The scarf's blood was troubling, but was it Clara's? Poirot's grey cells worked furiously, arranging the puzzle. Clara's disappearance was the key, but was she running from danger or toward it? As the storm raged on, a distant thud echoed from the attic. Poirot grabbed his flashlight and ascended, the narrow stairs creaking underfoot. The attic door was unlocked, and inside, amidst trunks and cobwebs, he found a small trunk, its lock freshly broken. Inside were letters, dozens, addressed to Clara in the same red ink as the threats. One read, "You'll never claim what's not yours." The handwriting was new, distinct from the others. Poirot's heart sank. The betrayer was closer than ever, and Clara's fate hung in the balance. The manor's secrets were unravelling, but the cost was rising. Was Clara alive, or had the traitor struck? The storm outside mirrored the chaos within, and Poirot knew the next move would be critical. Stay tuned for the truth to surface in the next chapter. Chapter 8. The Letter's Truth. The attic's musty air clung to Hercule Poirot as he stood over the broken trunk, the stack of threatening letters in his hands casting a grim shadow over Ravenwood Manor's mystery. The red-inked words, "You'll never claim what's not yours," burned with malice, each letter a silent scream directed at Clara. The storm outside howled, its fury rattling the attic's small window, but Poirot's mind was a calm fortress, piecing together the fragments of betrayal. Clara's disappearance, the blood-stained scarf, the pearl earring, the codicil, all pointed to a conspiracy rooted deep in the Harrington family. But whose hand penned these threats, and where was Clara now? Poirot descended to the library, the letters tucked safely in his coat. The room was silent, save for the crackle of the dying fire, its embers casting a warm glow over the bookshelves. He spread the letters on the desk, examining each under his magnifying glass. The handwriting was consistent, sharp and angular, unlike the scrawled notes pinned by daggers. A different author, then, or a clever disguise. One letter, dated a week prior, mentioned the trust explicitly, warning Clara to leave Ravenwood or lose everything. The codicil's secret was no secret, it seemed. But who else knew? Seeking answers, Poirot summoned Lord Harrington to the library. The old man entered. His shoulders stooped under the weight of worry. "Monsieur Poirot, have you found Clara?" he asked, voice trembling. Poirot held up a letter. "Milord, these were sent to your niece, threatening her over the trust you created." "Who, besides your solicitor, knew of this codicil?" Harrington sank into a chair, his face ashen. "No one, I swear. I wrote it to protect Clara. She's like a daughter to me, but I told Dr. Thorne in confidence as my oldest friend." Poirot's eyes narrowed. Thorne, always hovering, always watching. A friend or a foe? Poirot next sought Amelia, finding her in the drawing room, sketching nervously by candlelight. Her pencil froze as he entered. "Mademoiselle," he began, producing the torn silk glove. "This was found in the armory, near the stolen dagger. It is yours, non?" Amelia's breath caught, but she recovered quickly. "Yes, but I tore it weeks ago. Someone must have taken it from the laundry." Her voice was steady, but her fingers trembled. Poirot pressed further. "And the man in the garden, with whom you were seen. Was it Dr. Thorne?" Amelia's eyes flashed. "No, it was a servant delivering a message. I swear I'm no traitor." Her denial rang hollow, and Poirot let her stew, noting her unease. The morning brought a grim discovery. Jenkins, pale and shaken, approached Poirot in the hall. "Sir, in the cellar. There's something you must see." Poirot followed, descending into the damp, cavernous space beneath the manor. Amid crates of wine and forgotten furniture, Jenkins pointed to a corner where a tarp lay crumpled. Beneath it was a locked chest, its lid smeared with dried blood. Poirot's heart sank. Using a crowbar, Jenkins pried it open, revealing not a body, but a cache of stolen jewels, part of the safe's contents. Nestled among them was Clara's missing pearl earring, its twin still in Poirot's pocket. "Mon Dieu," he murmured. "Clara was here, or someone wishes us to think so." Poirot returned to the household, gathering them in the dining room. The air was thick with suspicion, eyes darting like trapped animals. "Mes amis," he announced, holding up the earring. "This was found with stolen jewels in the cellar. Clara is either a victim or a conspirator. Who among you last saw her?" Victor spoke first, his voice smooth. "She was in her room after dinner, upset about the mirror. I checked on her, but she sent me away." Reginald scoffed. "Convenient, Victor. You're always sniffing around her." Dr. Thorne interjected. "Enough, Reginald. I saw Clara in the hall heading downstairs around 11. She seemed determined." Poirot's mind churned. Clara? Heading downstairs? Perhaps to the cellar? Or Lord there? He excused himself, returning to the attic to re-examine the letters. One, tucked at the bottom, bore a faint smudge of perfume. Jasmine, Clara's scent. Had she written one herself to deflect suspicion? Or was it planted? Poirot's grey cells worked furiously, connecting the jewels, the blood, the letters. The cellar's chest suggested a stage scene, but for whose benefit? As noon approached, Poirot ventured to the lake, where Clara's scarf had been found. The muddy bank revealed fresh footprints, small, like a woman's, but too deliberate, as if meant to be seen. Nearby, half buried in reeds, he found a vial of red ink, its label matching the library's bottle. Someone was orchestrating a charade, but the why eluded him. Was Clara hiding, manipulating events, or lying dead in some forgotten corner? Back at the manor, a shout from the stables drew Poirot's attention. Racing over, he found Reginald wrestling with a stable hand, accusing him of stealing. "He was burning papers!" Reginald yelled, pointing to a smouldering pile. Poirot sifted through the ashes, salvaging a fragment with the word trust in red ink. Reginald paled. "I found those in the stables, I swear. I didn't write them." Poirot pocketed the fragment, his suspicions deepening. Reginald, Victor, Amelia, Thorne, each had a motive, each a lie. The day waned, and Poirot sat in his room. The clues laid out. The letters, the earring, the scarf, the ink, the burned paper. The betrayer was weaving a complex web, but a pattern emerged. Someone wanted Clara gone, her inheritance secured or destroyed. A sudden knock startled him. Jenkins stood there whispering, "Sir, I saw Miss Clara's coat in the gardener's shed, folded neatly. It's not been there before." Poirot's pulse raced. Clara alive and hiding, or another trap? The Manor's secrets were closing in, each clue a step toward truth or disaster. The betrayer's hand was near, and Poirot sensed a reckoning loomed. Stay tuned for the unravelling in the next chapter. Chapter 9. The Shed's Secret. The storm had passed, leaving Ravenwood Manor cloaked in an eerie calm, the kind that precedes a revelation or a ruin. Hercule Poirot's mind buzzed with the weight of his discoveries. The threatening letters, the blood-stained scarf, the stolen jewels, and now Clara's coat, neatly folded in the gardener's shed. Jenkins' whispered tip had sent a jolt through him. Clara, missing yet leaving traces, was either a mastermind or a pawn in this deadly game. The little Belgian detective adjusted his tie, his grey cells aligning the clues like stars in a constellation. The truth was near, but it danced just beyond his grasp, hidden in the Manor's labyrinth of lies. Poirot made his way to the gardener's shed, a weathered structure tucked behind the rose garden, its door half hidden by overgrown brambles. The morning light was weak, filtered through a heavy mist that clung to the grounds like a shroud. Inside the shed, the air was damp, smelling of earth and old tools. There, on a rickety table, lay Clara's coat, emerald green, unmistakable, folded with care. Poirot examined it closely, his magnifying glass revealing a faint stain on the cuff. Not blood, but oil, likely from a lantern. Nearby, a trapdoor in the floor caught his eye, its edges scuffed as if recently used. Lifting it, he found a narrow tunnel, its walls damp and earthen, stretching into darkness. A secret passage. Ravenwood was full of surprises. He descended, flashlight in hand, the tunnel's chill seeping through his coat. It led to a small chamber beneath the manor, where crates of old wine bottles were stacked against stone walls. Among them was a satchel, its leather worn but new enough to stand out. Inside, Poirot found documents, not the stolen deeds, but letters of credit signed by Lord Harrington, totaling thousands of pounds. A note in Clara's handwriting read, "For safety, until the truth is out." Poirot's heart raced. Clara was alive, hiding and protecting something, or someone. But why the tunnel, and why leave her coat as a clue? Returning to the manor, Poirot sought Dr. Thorne, whose calm demeanour had begun to crack. He found him in the conservatory, tending to a wilting fern with exaggerated care. "Doctor," Poirot said, his voice sharp, "you knew of the codicil, and you saw Clara last night, heading downstairs. Did you know of this?" He held up the satchel's note. Thorne's hand froze mid-air, his face paling. I advised Clara to be cautious," he admitted. "She came to me yesterday, frantic, saying she'd found papers in Victor's room, proof he was forging documents to claim the trust. I told her to hide them." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And the tunnel? Did she tell you of it?" Thorne shook his head, but his hesitation was telling. Poirot next confronted Victor in the billiard room, where the man was idly chalking a cue, his smirk as polished as ever. "Monsieur Victor," Poirot began, producing the oil-stained coat. "This was found in the shed, near a tunnel where Clara hid documents. You were seen with her often. Did you know her plans?" Victor's smile faltered, his eyes darting to the coat. Clara was paranoid, always talking about threats. "I didn't know about any tunnel. She must have run off scared." Poirot leaned closer. "Or you scared her, no? Forged documents, perhaps, to steal her inheritance." Victor's laugh was brittle. "You're grasping, Poirot. I'm no forger." But his fingers twitched, betraying nerves. The afternoon brought Poirot to the lake again, the scarf's blood haunting him. He examined the reeds, finding a small vial, empty but labelled as theatrical blood, the kind used in stage plays. A ruse, then, to fake Clara's harm. Amelia's love of amateur theatre, mentioned in passing, flickered in his mind. He found her in the library, reading, her composure a thin veneer. "Mademoiselle Amelia," he said, holding up the vial. This was near the scarf, a performance perhaps to divert suspicion. Amelia's book fell from her hands. I don't know what you mean," she stammered. "I've never seen that." But her eyes betrayed fear, and Poirot noted her quick glance toward the door. As evening approached, Poirot gathered his clues: the tunnel, the satchel, the theatrical blood, Clara's note. The pieces were aligning. Clara, aware of Victor's forgery, had hidden evidence, perhaps to expose him. But the blood, the scarf, the coat— someone else was manipulating the narrative, framing Clara as victim or villain. Reginald's burned papers, Amelia's glove, Thorne's secrets— each was a thread, but the weaver remained hidden. A sudden commotion broke his thoughts. Jenkins burst into the library, breathless. "Sir, in the chapel, Miss Clara." Poirot raced to the Manor's small chapel, a stone building on the grounds, its stained glass windows glowing in the dusk. There, slumped on a pew, was Clara, alive but pale, her dress torn. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "I hid. They were going to kill me." Before she could say more, she fainted, her hand clutching a locket. Poirot opened it, revealing a tiny portrait of Lady Harrington, Clara's late aunt. The Manor's secrets were cracking open, but danger loomed closer. Clara's return raised new questions. Who had she fled from, and what did the locket mean? The betrayer's shadow was long, and Poirot sensed the final act approaching. Stay tuned for the climactic unravelling in the next chapter. Chapter 10. The Truth. Unravelled. The chapel's dim light cast long shadows over Clara's unconscious form, her locket glinting in Hercule Poirot's hand as he studied the portrait of Lady Harrington. The Manor's secrets had reached a boiling point, and Poirot knew the time for revelations had come. Clara's return, the hidden tunnel, the forged documents, the theatrical blood, the threatening letters— all were threads in a tapestry of betrayal, woven with cunning precision. The little Belgian detective summoned the household to the drawing room, his grey cells alight with the final picture. Tonight, Ravenwood Manor's traitor would be unmasked, and the truth would burn brighter than the chandelier above. As the household gathered, Lord Harrington, pale and weary, Amelia, her eyes guarded, Reginald reeking of brandy, Victor, his charm frayed, Dr. Thorne fidgeting, and Jenkins, silent as a spectre. Clara was carried in, revived but weak, her gaze darting nervously. Poirot stood at the room's centre, his presence commanding silence. "Mes amis," he began, his voice steady, "the betrayal at Ravenwood is no simple theft. It is a plot of greed, fear, and vengeance orchestrated by one among you. Let us unravel this web." He held up the codicil. This document, naming Clara sole heir to a hidden trust, sparked the chaos. Lord Harrington wrote it to protect his niece, but it was discovered. By whom? He turned to Dr. Thorne. "You, Doctor, knew of it, confided by your friend. But you told another, no?" Thorne's face crumpled. "I mentioned it to Amelia in passing." "I meant no harm," Amelia gasped, but Poirot raised a hand. "Patience, mademoiselle. Your role comes later. Next." He produced the crumpled note from the West Wing. "This, meet me at midnight. The safe must be open. Was no accident. It was written by Victor." The fiancé's eyes widened. "Lies," he spat, but Poirot continued. "You and Reginald plotted to steal the safe's contents, jewels, deeds, and the codicil, to secure the fortune. I overheard you in the gazebo, planning to ruin Lord Harrington." Reginald stammered. I was desperate. My debts." Victor shot him a venomous look, but Poirot pressed on. "You used Clara's hairpin to pick the safe's lock, Victor, but you didn't expect her to suspect you." Poirot turned to Clara, clutching her locket. "Mademoiselle, you found Victor's forged letters of credit in his room, hidden in the satchel I found in the tunnel. You hid there, fearing for your life, leaving your coat in the shed to mislead us. But why the locket? Clara's voice was faint. It was my aunt's. She left me a letter hidden in it, warning me about... Amelia! The room froze. Amelia stood, trembling. That's absurd, she cried. But Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. Mademoiselle Amelia, he said, holding up the torn silk glove and the vial of theatrical blood. You orchestrated the threats, the notes, the dagger, the scarf, to frame Clara as a victim or villain, diverting suspicion from yourself. The glove taken from your laundry was planted in the armory. The blood by the lake was your theatrical touch, learned from your amateur plays. You knew of the codicil and feared Clara's inheritance would diminish your own. Amelia's face twisted. You can't prove that, she hissed. Poirot produced the red-inked letters from the attic. These, written in your hand, Amelia, threatened Clara to drive her away. The jasmine perfume on one was yours, not Clara's. And the man in the garden, not a servant, but Jenkins, your reluctant ally. Jenkins gasped, stepping back. You coerced him, Poirot continued, using his loyalty to the family. He left the armory unlocked, planted the note, and hid Clara's coat, all at your bidding. Jenkins hung his head. She threatened to ruin me, sir. My family depends on this job. Lord Harrington's voice broke the silence. Amelia, my own daughter. Poirot nodded gravely. She sought to discredit Clara, perhaps even eliminate her to secure the estate. The burned papers in the stables were her attempt to destroy evidence of her threats. But Reginald found them first, unaware of her role. Amelia collapsed into a chair, sobbing. I only wanted what was mine. Clara was an outsider, taking everything. Poirot's voice softened. The theft was Victor and Reginald's doing, but the terror was yours, Amelia. The codicil is safe, the jewels recovered, and Clara lives. The betrayal ends here. He turned to Lord Harrington. My lord, the police must be called. Justice will decide their fates. Harrington nodded, tears in his eyes, as Clara clung to him. As the household dispersed, shaken and silent, Poirot stood by the fire, his work complete. The manor's shadows had parted, revealing greed and desperation in equal measure. The human heart, he mused, is the greatest puzzle of all. He turned to the audience, his eyes twinkling. If you've enjoyed this tale of treachery and truth, please like and subscribe. Your support means the world to us. Stay tuned for more mysteries, mes amis.